Gentlemen, we can rebuild him. Those words promised immortality. For 5 years, Steve Austin was the ultimate symbol of American strength, better, stronger, faster. But science has no cure for the cruel passage of time. Behind the bionic eye lay a human soul prone to quiet heartbreak. We mourn the unspeakable loss of the stern father figure Oscar Goldman and witness the lonely winter of the hero who outlived his era. Tonight, we dismantle the machine to hold the fragile human beneath. Richard Anderson as Oscar Goldman. Long before he donned the sharp suits of the OSI, Richard Anderson was already a man acquainted with duty and service. Born on August 8, 1926 in Long Branch, New Jersey, he came of age during a time when the world was on fire. He served his country in the United States Army during World War II, an experience that instilled in him a disciplined posture that no acting class could truly teach. He was 48 years old when he stepped into the role of the handler, bringing a gravitas that grounded the fantastical elements of the show in a serious Cold War reality. As Oscar Goldman Anderson was the calm within the bionic storm. While Steve Austin was the muscle and the speed, Oscar was the conscience and the strategy. Viewers loved him because he wasn't just a bureaucrat barking orders. He was a father figure who clearly cared for his agents. His chemistry with Lee Majors was the bedrock of the series, proving that even a $6 million man needed a moral compass to point him in the right direction. Behind the polished exterior of Oscar Goldman Anderson was a man who worked tirelessly, often sacrificing personal time for the craft he loved. The hidden truth of his life was simply the relentless nature of the industry and the burden of being the man everyone relied on. His service in WW2 remained a foundational part of his spirit, a silent chapter of sacrifice that informed the stiff upper lip he presented to the world. He was a private man guarding his history as closely as Oscar guarded state secrets. After the bionic era ended, Anderson did not fade into the background. He continued to work, lending his distinctive voice and commanding presence to various projects well into his later years. He became a symbol of a bygone era of television where authority figures were viewed with respect rather than suspicion. Richard Anderson took his final bow on August 31, 2017. He was 91 years old at the time of his passing. Today, in 2026, we remember him not just as the man who authorized the bionic surgery, but as a pillar of strength who proved that one does not need superpowers to be a hero. His legacy is one of quiet reliability, reminding us that for every superstar running in slow motion, there needs to be a steady hand guiding the way. Lee Majors as Colonel Steve Austin. Born on April 23, 1939 in Wyandotte, Michigan, the boy born Harvey Lee. Yeary faced a world of loss before he could even walk. His father died in a work accident months before his birth, and his mother was killed in a car crash when he was barely a toddler. Adopted by his aunt and uncle, he grew up not knowing the truth of his parentage until his teenage years, a revelation that shaped a profound sense of self-reliance. He was 35 years old when the show premiered, bringing with him a rugged athletic physicality and a wounded soul that fit the character perfectly. Lee Majors defined cool for the 1970s. As Steve Austin, he wasn't a Superman who was born perfect. He was a broken man rebuilt by technology. His performance was understated, often communicating more with a raised eyebrow or a crooked smirk than a page of dialogue. The physical demands of the role were immense, requiring him to sprint, jump, and fight in a way that made us believe in the impossible. He made a tracksuit look like a uniform of honor and turned the sound of a bionic eye zooming in into the soundtrack of our childhoods. While he was the ultimate hero on screen, his real life was fraught with the complexities of love and identity. During the height of his fame, he was one half of Hollywood's golden couple, married to Farrah Fawcett from 1973 to 1982. The dissolution of that marriage under the glare of the paparazzi was a profound wound played out in the grocery store checkout lines of America. Furthermore, the shadow of his orphaned beginning always loomed. The man who played a cyborg often felt a deep human loneliness that fame could not cure. He struggled to find roles that allowed him to shed the bionic persona, fighting to be seen as an actor, not just a franchise. Majors reinvented himself in the 1980s with The Fall Guy, proving his staying power, but he never ran from his past. As the decades rolled on, he embraced Steve Austin with grace, voicing the character in spoofs and appearing in comedies that poked fun at his tough guy image. He never stopped working his work ethic, driven by that Depression-era upbringing where nothing was taken for granted. Today, on January 5, 2026, Lee Majors is 87 years old, and he is still with us. He remains a testament to endurance both on screen and off. His legacy is etched in the slow-motion memories of millions, a man who taught us that we have the technology to rebuild ourselves no matter how shattered we might be. He stands today as a living legend, the original bionic man who outran time itself. Lindsay Wagner as Jaime Summers. Before she captured the world's imagination, Lindsay Wagner was a free spirit navigating the changing tides of the 60s and 70s. Born on June 22, 1949 in Los Angeles, she possessed a natural, ethereal beauty that masked a steely resolve. She drifted into acting, her talent undeniable, but she was never just looking for stardom. She was looking for meaning. She was only 25 years old when she first appeared as Jaime Summers, intended to be a tragic, short-lived love interest for Steve Austin. However, her performance was so magnetic, so undeniably powerful, that the public demanded her return, literally resurrecting her from the dead. Lindsay Wagner changed the landscape for women on television. Jaime Summers wasn't just a female version of Steve Austin. She was a character with deep emotional intelligence. She fought bad guys, yes, but she also taught school and connected with people on a soul level. We loved her because she showed us that vulnerability is a strength. She played the role with a reluctance that mirrored reality. She often fought for scripts that emphasized intellect and compassion over mere bionic brute force. Her Emmy win for the role validated that an action hero could also deliver a performance of great nuance. Her life off-screen has been marked by brushes with mortality and the search for stability. The most chilling moment came in 1979 when she was scheduled to board American Airlines Flight 191. A sudden feeling of illness caused her to cancel the trip. The plane subsequently crashed, killing everyone on board. This survivor's guilt and the realization of life's fragility profoundly shifted her perspective. Additionally, she navigated the rocky waters of romance, marrying and divorcing 4 times, seeking a partnership that could match her own complex spirit. These struggles led her toward a path of holistic healing and self-discovery. Wagner transitioned from Hollywood starlet to a healer and advocate. She stepped back from the relentless grind of leading roles to focus on workshops, spirituality, and mental health advocacy. She became a champion for children with dyslexia and victims of abuse, using her fame as a platform for genuine good. In recent years, she has remained politically and socially active, even signing calls to boycott institutions she felt were unjust in late 2024. She acts selectively, choosing roles that resonate with her mature worldview. As of today, January 5, 2026, Lindsay Wagner is 77 years old. She remains a beacon of grace, her hair now silver but her eyes still holding that same compassionate spark. Her legacy is not just in the stunts she performed, but in the barriers she broke and the lives she touched through her advocacy. She taught a generation of girls that they could be strong, fast, and powerful without losing their hearts. William Shatner as guest star. Harry Anderson. Josh Lang. By the time he crossed paths with the Bionic Man, William Shatner was already a man trying to outrun the shadow of the Enterprise. Born on March 22, 1931 in Montreal, Quebec, he was a classically trained Shakespearean actor who had been thrust into sci-fi immortality. However, after Star Trek was canceled, he faced a brutal period of typecasting and financial difficulty. He was 43 years old in 1974, a working actor hustling for gigs, living in a camper truck for a time, determined to keep his career alive by taking any role that allowed him to display his immense range. Shatner's appearances in The $6 Million Man were a masterclass in intensity. Whether playing a fellow astronaut with ESP or a man struggling with his own humanity, he brought a kinetic energy that rivaled Lee Majors' stoicism. We loved him because he committed 100% to the premise, no matter how outlandish. He chewed the scenery with a delightful fervor, providing a dramatic foil to the show's format. Shatner's life is a tapestry of immense public success and private sorrow. He endured the tragic drowning death of his third wife, Noreen, a trauma that haunted him and informed his later introspective work. Health scares also loomed. In March 2024, he bravely went public with a stage 4 melanoma diagnosis, discussing the fragility of life with a candor that stunned his fans. Despite his bravado, he has grappled with the loneliness of outliving his peers and the existential dread he felt even while traveling to the edge of space. William Shatner simply refused to stop. After his bionic guest spots, he revitalized his career with T.J. Hooker Boston Legal and the Star Trek movies. In 2021, at age 90, he became the oldest person to travel to space, a poetic fulfillment of his life's most famous role. He became an author, a recording artist, and a documentarian. His 2024 documentary, You Can Call Me Bill, revealed a man still searching for answers, still filled with wonder, and still fiercely fighting the dying of the light. Incredibly now, William Shatner is 95 years old and still alive. He is an unstoppable force of nature, a man who turned a guest appearance into just another chapter in one of Hollywood's most epic novels. His legacy is one of pure, unadulterated survival and the refusal to ever be defined by a single moment. George Takei as guest star Ishiguro. George Takei's journey to the screen was paved with hardships that few could imagine. Born on April 20th, 1937 in Los Angeles, his childhood was stolen by the prejudices of war. As a young boy, he and his family were forced into Japanese-American internment camps during World War II, growing up behind barbed wire simply because of his heritage. This injustice forged a spirit of resilience. By the time he appeared on The $6 Million Man, he was 37 years old, a recognizable face from Star Trek, but still fighting for roles that treated Asian American characters with respect rather than caricature. In his guest appearance, Takei brought a quiet competence and professionalism that elevated the material. He wasn't just the pilot or the technician, he was a presence. We loved him because he represented a future we wanted to believe in, a competent, diverse world of science and cooperation. Even in smaller roles, his distinctive baritone voice and precise diction commanded attention. He played his part with a seriousness that suggested a rich inner life for his character, refusing to be background dressing. For decades, George Takei lived with a secret that weighed as heavily as the memories of the internment camps. He was a gay man in an industry that would have destroyed his career had the truth been known. He lived in the shadows, maintaining a don't ask, don't tell existence while watching friends succumb to the AIDS crisis. It wasn't until 2005 that he publicly came out, finally introducing the world to his partner of nearly 2 decades, Brad Altman. This delayed liberation was a source of pain, but also the fuel for his second act as a fierce activist. Takei transformed from an actor into a cultural icon and a digital warrior. He utilized social media to build a massive following, using humor and wit to fight for LGBTQ+ rights and racial justice. He authored books and produced a Broadway musical based on his childhood experiences. He married Brad in 2008, reclaiming the joy he had denied himself publicly for so long. He even returned to the Star Trek universe in voice roles, bridging the generations. Today, on January 5th, 2026, George Takei is 89 years old and alive. He stands as a giant of civil rights and Hollywood history. His legacy is not just in the characters he played, but in the courage it took to be himself. He taught us that the greatest frontier is not space, but the human heart and the fight for equality. Martin E. Brooks as Dr. Rudy Wells. Martin E. Brooks brought a soldier's grit to the role of the intellectual scientist. Born on November 30th, 1925 in the Bronx, his early life was defined by the fires of World War II. He served as a paratrooper with the 11th Airborne Division, dropping into hostile territory and earning a Purple Heart for injuries sustained in battle. This real-world toughness lay beneath his refined exterior. Born Martin Baum, he changed his name on the advice of producer Richard Rodgers to navigate the industry better. He was 49 years old when he took over the role of Rudy Wells in 1974, bringing a new, sharper energy to the character. Brooks was the Rudy Wells who felt most like a contemporary scientist. While his predecessors were grandfatherly, Brooks was active often in the field and displayed a distinct intellectual curiosity. We loved him because he made the techno-babble sound like poetry. He was the explainer, the man who bridged the gap between the audience and the impossible physics of bionics. Remarkably, he played the character on 2 different networks simultaneously when the Bionic Woman moved to NBC, a testament to how essential he was to the fabric of the franchise. The hidden struggle of Martin Brooks was the struggle of the replacement. Stepping into a role established by other actors is a thankless task, yet he made it his own through sheer force of will. Beyond the screen, he carried the physical and emotional scars of his paratrooper days, a silent brotherhood of trauma, common to men of his generation. He was also an artist with a soul that yearned for more than just television. He was a writer and a musician, releasing an album of his own songs, revealing a sensitive, creative interior that the sterile lab coat of Rudy Wells rarely allowed him to show. After the Bionic saga concluded, Brooks continued to act sporadically, but found his true calling in education. He opened a highly respected acting school, passing on the techniques and discipline he had mastered over a lifetime. He became a mentor, shaping the next generation of actors with the same precision he used to fix Steve Austin's circuits. He lived a long, full life, remaining active in the theater community and enjoying the recognition that came from being the definitive Rudy Wells. Martin E. Brooks passed away on December 7, 2015 from natural causes. He was 90 years old. His legacy is one of intelligence and integrity. In 2026, we look back at him as the man who made us believe that science could save us. He was the steady hand that kept the $6 million investment running, a soldier-turned-healer who left an indelible mark on television history. Kathy Rigby as Kimberly. Before she was an actress, Kathy Rigby was an American hero in a leotard. Born on December 12, 1952 in Los Alamitos, California, she was a tiny dynamo who helped popularize gymnastics in the United States. Her performance at the 1968 Olympics captivated the nation, and in 1970, she became the first American woman to win a medal at the World Championships. She was only 22 years old when she appeared on the $6 Million Man cast, specifically because her physical abilities rivaled the special effects used for Steve Austin. Rigby didn't just act, she performed. As a Russian gymnast in the series, she matched Lee Majors beat for beat in physical prowess. We loved her because she was the real deal. There were no wires or camera tricks needed when she flipped across the screen. Her presence brought a legitimacy to the show's action sequences. She represented the pinnacle of human potential, a reminder that the human body could do miraculous things without bionic implants. Her petite frame belied a ferocious strength that made her an instant favorite among viewers. Behind the perfect landings and the bright smile, Rigby was fighting a desperate war against her own body. For 12 agonizing years, she suffered from severe anorexia and bulimia, a dark secret common in the high-pressure world of gymnastics. She was starving herself to maintain an impossible ideal, battling demons that the cameras couldn't see. Furthermore, she broke societal taboos in the mid-70s by being the first celebrity to endorse menstrual hygiene products, a brave move that subjected her to ridicule but paved the way for open conversations about women's health. Rigby conquered her eating disorder and transformed her career, yet again becoming a giant of the theater. She is most famous for her portrayal of Peter Pan, a role she played for over 30 years on Broadway and in touring productions. She found liberation in flying across the stage, earning a Tony nomination and critical acclaim. She also became a motivational speaker, using her painful history with eating disorders to help others, turning her private struggle into public salvation. Today, on January 5, 2026, Kathy Rigby is 74 years old and alive. She remains a symbol of resilience and reinvention. From the balance beam to the bionic set to the Broadway stage, she has spent her life defying gravity. Her legacy is one of fierce determination, proving that the strongest muscle in the body is indeed the heart. Meg Foster as Minnie. Meg Foster was never an ordinary ingenue. She was a presence that demanded attention. Born on May 10, 1948 in Reading, Pennsylvania, she grew up with a gaze that set her apart, piercing pale blue eyes that looked like ice and fire simultaneously. She studied acting in New York, honing a craft that was intense and internalized. She was 26 years old when she was cast as Minnie, an alien visitor. The casting was inspired. She didn't need special effects to look otherworldly. She simply needed to open her eyes. As Minnie Foster was captivating. In an era of rubber masks and zippered alien suits, she provided a portrayal that was eerily human yet distinctly other. We loved her because she was unsettling in the best possible way. Her performance was quiet, relying on stillness and that hypnotic stare to convey ancient wisdom and hidden danger. She had a chemistry with the cast that suggested a deep, unspoken backstory. Producers famously found her eyes so distracting that they sometimes asked her to wear contact lenses, but in The $6 Million Man, those eyes were her superpower. Foster's unique look was a double-edged sword. While it won her roles in sci-fi and horror, it also alienated her from mainstream romantic leads. Her most significant professional heartbreak came with the show Cagney and Lacey. She was originally cast as Cagney, but was fired after only 6 episodes because executives felt she and Tyne Daly looked too tough together and feared the audience would perceive the characters as lesbians, a painful reflection of the homophobia of the time. As a single mother raising her son, Christopher, she had to navigate an industry that often judged her by her appearance rather than her immense talent. Foster embraced her status as a cult icon. She became a queen of genre cinema, starring in horror films and sci-fi epics like They Live and Masters of the Universe. She never stopped working, bringing a gravitas to every role no matter the budget. In her later years, she experienced a renaissance appearing in modern horror films where her age and her iconic eyes added a layer of terrifying wisdom to her characters. She wore her history like armor, unapologetic and fierce. As of January 5, 2026, Meg Foster is 78 years old and still alive. She is still acting, still striking, and those eyes have not dimmed with age. Her legacy is one of unique individuality. She proved that being different wasn't a flaw but a cinematic asset. She remains one of the most memorable faces to ever grace the screen, a haunting beauty that time cannot erase. Farrah Fawcett as Major Erica Bergstrom. Before the poster that changed the world, Farrah Fawcett was a Texas beauty with a smile that could stop traffic. Born on February 2, 1947 in Corpus Christi, Texas, she arrived in Hollywood with a wholesome charm and a mane of blonde hair that would define a decade. She was 27 years old when she guest-starred on The $6 Million Man. At the time, she was known primarily as Lee Major's wife, a +1 to the bionic phenomenon. But it was clear to anyone watching that she possessed a star power that could not be contained in a supporting role. In her appearances, the chemistry between her and Lee Majors was palpable. It was the spark of real-life love captured on 35mm film. We loved her because she was radiant. She played Major Bergstrom with a mix of competence and glamour that was intoxicating. Even in a jumpsuit, she looked like a movie star. These guest spots were the prelude to the explosion of Charlie's Angels. But in the bionic world, she was the grounded, emotional connection for Steve Austin, blurring the lines between fiction and reality for the audience. Farrah's life became a cautionary tale of the price of fame. She became an object of desire for millions, her red swimsuit poster selling 20 million copies, yet she fought desperately to be taken seriously as an actress. Her marriage to Lee crumbled under the pressure. In her later years, the golden light turned harsh. In 2006, she was diagnosed with anal cancer. She fought the disease with a public bravery that was heartbreaking, documenting her struggle in Farrah's story to strip away the glamour and show the brutal reality of illness. Her battle ended on a day that the world seemed to stop spinning. She passed away on the morning of June 25, 2009. However, her death was tragically overshadowed. Mere hours later, Michael Jackson also died, dominating the global news cycle and leaving Farrah's passing as a footnote in history books. It was a final, cruel irony for a woman who had fought so hard to be seen. She left her fortune to her troubled son Redmond, a final act of maternal love from a woman who had given everything she had to the world. Farrah Fawcett died at the age of 62. In 2026, we remember her not just as a pinup, but as a fighter. Her legacy is complicated and beautiful. She remains the symbol of 1970s optimism, a woman who smiled through the pain until the very end. She was the angel who earned her wings through fire. John Saxon as Nedlick. John Saxon was the definition of a working actor's toughness. Born Carmine Orico on August 5, 1936 in Brooklyn, New York, he studied with the legendary Stella Adler. He had a brooding intensity that allowed him to play characters of various ethnicities, from Mexican bandits to Italian tough guys. By the time he faced off against the $6 Million Man, he was 38 years old, already a veteran of westerns and horror films. He brought a cinematic pedigree to the small screen, having co-starred with Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon just a year prior. Saxon played the villain Nedlick in the iconic Day of the Robot storyline. He was terrifying because he was cold, calculating, and physically imposing. We loved to hate him. He didn't chew the scenery, he dissected it. His performance gave the show a sense of danger. He was a bad guy who looked like he could actually hurt Steve Austin. He treated the role with the same seriousness he applied to his film work, elevating the genre TV material into a gritty thriller. Saxon's career was a constant hustle. Despite his talent and good looks, he often found himself typecast as the heavy or the sidekick, rarely getting the leading man status he deserved in major studio pictures. He worked in Italian B-movies and low-budget horror to keep working, a testament to his lack of ego and his need to provide. He was a man who loved the craft, but often had to settle for the paycheck, a struggle known to many talented actors in the Hollywood machine. Saxon became a horror icon thanks to A Nightmare on Elm Street, playing the sturdy father figure, a role that introduced him to a new generation. He continued to work tirelessly, racking up hundreds of credits. He was a fixture at conventions, a humble man who seemed surprised and touched by the adoration of fans who remembered him from kung fu movies, slasher flicks, and bionic adventures alike. He never retired. He simply kept going until his body could no longer keep up with his spirit. John Saxon passed away on July 25, 2020, from pneumonia. He was 83 years old. In 2026, his legacy is solid as a rock. He was the quintessential character actor, the man who made every movie better just by being in it. He proved that you don't need to be the star to shine the brightest. Andre the Giant as Bigfoot. André René Roussimoff was born into a life that was destined to be larger than life. Born on May 19, 1946, in Coulommiers, France, he suffered from acromegaly, a condition that caused his body to produce excess growth hormone. By age 12, he was already over 6 feet tall. He left home as a teenager to become a wrestler, traveling the world as a spectacle. He was 28 years old when he donned the fur suit to play Bigfoot, a casting choice that required no camera tricks to make him look massive. He was the special effect. André's portrayal of Bigfoot is one of the most memorable in TV history. It wasn't just a monster movie. It was a tragedy. André played the creature not as a beast, but as a misunderstood protector. We loved him because even under the makeup, his soulful eyes conveyed a deep sadness. The slow-motion fight scenes with Lee Majors are legendary, but it was the quiet moments where André's gentle nature shone through. He made us root for the monster. André's life was a constant battle against physical agony. His size was his fortune, but also his curse. The world was not built for him. Chairs, broke cars were too small, and he could barely dial a telephone with his massive fingers. To cope with the chronic pain in his back and knees, he self-medicated with alcohol, becoming the subject of legendary stories about consuming over 100 beers in a single sitting, not for a party, but just to numb the pain. He knew his condition would lead to an early grave, living his life with the ticking clock of a heart that was working too hard to keep him alive. As his health declined, his fame only grew. He became a global icon in the WWF, now WWE, and charmed the world as Fezzik in The Princess Bride. However, his body eventually gave out. He continued to wrestle long after he should have stopped, driven by a sense of obligation to his fans and the business. In his final years, he was a prisoner in his own body, retreating to his ranch in North Carolina, where he could finally be at peace away from the staring eyes of the public. Andre the Giant passed away in his sleep on January 28, 1993, from heart failure. He was only 46 years old. Today, in 2026, he is remembered with a reverence usually reserved for saints. He was a gentle giant who carried the weight of the world on his shoulders, a man who gave us magic even while he was in pain. Jack Colvin as Dr. Charles Lee. Jack Colvin was an actor's actor, a man dedicated to the craft above all else. Born on October 13, 1934 in Linden, Kansas, he began performing as a child. He was a serious student of the art, becoming a private pupil of the legendary Michael Chekhov at age 17. This training gave him a methodical, intense approach to every role. He was 40 years old when he appeared in the Bionic franchise, bringing a maturity and a distinct sharp-edged intelligence to the screen that separated him from the typical extra or day player. Though he would later become famous as the reporter Jack McGee in The Incredible Hulk, his time in The $6 Million Man as Dr. Charles Lee showcased his ability to play authoritative intellects. We loved him because he was believable. He possessed a voice and a demeanor that commanded respect. He didn't play the scientist as a nerd, but as a professional. His interactions were crisp and grounded, helping to sell the pseudoscience of the show to a skeptical audience. Colvin's life was dedicated to the transmission of knowledge, often at the expense of his own spotlight. He wasn't interested in the trappings of stardom. He was interested in the truth of performance. His hidden truth was his deep immersion in the Michael Chekhov technique, a spiritual and psychological approach to acting that requires immense emotional vulnerability. He suffered a stroke later in life, a cruel blow to a man whose instrument was his voice and body, stripping him of the ability to perform in the way he once loved. Colvin transitioned from the screen to the classroom. He co-founded the Michael Chekhov Studio USA West, dedicating his later years to teaching. He found joy in shaping the actors of the future, passing on a legacy that stretched back to the masters of the early 20th century. He was a revered figure in the acting community in Los Angeles, known not just for chasing the Hulk, but for chasing the truth. Jack Colvin passed away on December 1, 2005 from complications following a stroke. He was 71 years old. In 2026, we honor him as a master craftsman. He was the unsung hero of 70s television, the reliable presence who made the fantastic seem real. His legacy lives on in the students he taught and the classic scenes he grounded with his presence. The bionic legs have finally stopped running. Standing here in early 2026, the $6 million price tag seems small compared to the cost of losing these icons. We honor the steadfast loyalty of Richard Anderson and the enduring spirit of Lee Majors. They taught us that being a hero isn't about the hardware you carry. It's about the heart that beats inside the metal. Mission accomplished, Colonel. You are clear for landing.